Hello and welcome to Orca Media presentation of Living Spark, a project of the Spark of Humanity Network, where we discuss how to live the philosophy of the Spark of Humanity Network. Now, if that's new to you or if you're returning and wouldn't mind a reminder, I always try to begin by talking about, by reading a little bit from the Statement of Principles, which is available on our website, sparkofhumanity.net. Lots more to it than what I'm going to read to you right now. But I always like to start at the beginning. The insight that there is a spark of humanity in everyone is the foundation of our network. We have discovered that as we connect with and affirm that spark in others, we are claiming our personal spark and becoming agents of transformation. As we are engaged by life and moving through our experiences in this world, we sometimes notice that our sparks have become defended, distorted, or baffled. However, we have found that they can never be extinguished or corrupted. And as we claim our sparks and connect with and affirm the spark of others, it seems that their spark is strengthened. What I do on this show is I typically talk a little bit about homework that I gave myself at the end of the previous show. And we do that for a little while, and then we jump into the topic of the week, and we go a little bit further with that, and I give myself new homework, which is the way that I know this is a productive thing for me to be doing with my time. It's helpful to me to talk about the things that matter to me spiritually. It also is productive for me to assign tasks, because then during the following 2 weeks, I will be asking myself, how does this situation, how does this conflict, this trouble, this lovely experience relate to the thing that I gave myself as homework? It's just an attempt to practice a little insight in my own life and my own process. Now, for the last few sessions, we've been talking about compassion. Martha Holden joined us last time, and we talked about compassion because it was September 11th. We talked about 9/11 and compassion, and looking at that experience through the lens of the Spark of Humanity practice. I would recommend that you go find that if you haven't seen it. It's well worth your time. I'm going to build on the homework I'd given myself previously, which has been something that one tries to do anyway. I think anyone in any spiritual practice, and that is what this is, it's a secular spiritual practice, right? So unusual, but we're not preaching a religion. We're kind of maybe coming from the perspective of a melding of psychology and spirituality. I think that may be a fair way to broadly categorize what we do here. But anyway, I think that I tell people this frequently: there is never too much compassion in the world, especially at times like these. Stuff going on in the world, scary. Stuff going on in this country, scary. In your state in Vermont, I'm in California, joining you through the magic of Zoom plus Orca Media. Everywhere you are, there are frightening or upsetting things in the world. I always tell people there is never too much compassion in the world. So I've been looking for ways to grow my compassion, to expand it, and I've been finding when challenging things arise to ask myself, what is the compassionate response to this situation? A lot more complicated, like it's easy to say that in a glib way. I think I do that. Maybe I've even done that here. But the challenge is, how do you do it? Like, how do you do it? How do you live in a sorry, that was my cat jumping off my lap. Momo will join us off and on, and I'm trying to get her white hairs off of me now. And I apologize for that. But anyway, The the current thing I find is that when I'm in conflict with someone, in the moment, I'm very, very bad at being compassionate toward them. Or if I tell myself, if I kind of give myself the argument, the order, oh, be compassionate with that person, like I have a lofty ideal and I'm trying to live up to it, then I find myself sometimes rolling over a little too quickly. Like I have to really try to find my place in how to be compassionate with the other person, but how to protect and therefore be compassionate toward myself. These things are they're very tricky to balance. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about a couple of things that I've discovered as I've really been working with that in some, as it turns out, some really challenging situations. First of all, I don't sell things here. We'll never ask for your money. We'll never ask you to, like, share, subscribe. We don't do that. But I just want to mention a book that I've been reading, and I think I mentioned it 2 weeks ago, and you might get the impression that I'm an incredibly slow reader, which is true in the sense of something that has spiritual content, because I tend to read a little bit of it and then try to live with that and see if I can, integrate that in my life, if it informs anything in my life, and then I return to it, and if it's worthwhile, and I spend time going back and forth with that process. So the book is it's called Radical Compassion, and I don't know if you have an e-reader or not, but I noticed that because I'm kind of a voracious reader, I will sometimes wake up and discover that I've spent $100 that I didn't necessarily have on buying books in the middle of the night, because if I have a bout of insomnia, I can sometimes say, well, I don't want to read anything I have here, and I start shopping. But I've got that a little bit better under control. But this book, Radical Compassion, by Tara Brach, is because of those little bouts of purchasing stuff in a semi-conscious way. I discovered the book was on my Kindle. It was just there. Well, of course, I had bought it at some point. And I think that I thought Radical Compassion was going to be an outward focused thing, which I wouldn't mind it if someone wrote about that, how to direct compassion from oneself toward the world around us, and perhaps evoke change in the world by doing that. But the book is, so far, I haven't read it all. I'm still about halfway through it. And that's, again, read a little bit, integrate it, read a little bit more. It is talking about the internal compassion that we have for ourselves, and how that can bring about healing in ourselves, and how that can then spread to our relationships. I do quote Tibetan Buddhism here frequently. I'm not proselytizing. It may seem uncomfortable to some people, for which I apologize. And by the way, there's a phone number on the screen. You can call us. There's an email address. You can email us. We would love to hear from you. We love criticism or encouragement or whatever. So please don't hesitate to avail yourself of those resources. But yeah, there's a talk on YouTube from the Office of the Dalai Lama, OHHDL, the Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in which he talks about peace through inner peace, that we can't give the world what we don't already have. And so when we talk about peace on earth, it really does kind of have to, start inside of us. And I'm grossly over synopsizing Tara Brach's work, but I still feel like my experience with it so far has been that by finding more compassion for myself, I'm starting to be able to have more compassion for others. So that's been beneficial. Her process is the acronym is RAIN, R-A-I-N. It is to recognize, and we're talking again halfway through the book, so I might learn there's more to it than this, but we're recognizing how we might be holding our bodies or holding some stress or discomfort in our body. And then we accept that we're doing that. And it doesn't mean that we say, okay, that's all there is to it. I have a shoulder that's like this, and that's it. There's then investigation. Is the I. Why am I doing this? Well, because I'm trying to protect myself from something, and then to sort of further investigate and go, I feel like I'm protecting myself from X, Y, or Z. Just a quick synopsis. For me, I often find, and this is because I've begun working with her meditations on YouTube and her website, and also the book itself. I've been noticing that I frequently get this kind of cold spot on my sides, which is a weird place to have it. And I don't know anyone else when I mention it I've had that off and on my whole life. And I realized at some point that I studied classical guitar and jazz guitar, and I did a lot of performing. And I kept thinking, where is that stress coming from, and why is it arising within certain contexts, within certain circumstances? And I began to realize that when you're holding a guitar and when you're scared to be on stage, which I was when I was young, that's exactly where the stress is, because your arms are here and you kind of tighten up your whole body. You think, I got to sit up straight. And so, yeah, I get that, like, my shoulders are tight and my legs tighten up sometimes, whatever. But this has been coming up a lot. And so I recognized that that's where the stress was. Then I began to ask myself to accept that that's where it is frequently, not try to push it away. I think that's what I've done most of my adult life, is to say, like, no, don't feel that. That's not cool. That's uncomfortable. Stop feeling that. And it doesn't work. It might work for a second, but it doesn't last. You don't keep feeling, it's like relax. Like, you don't benefit from that. One does not benefit from that. I don't benefit from it. So we're, yes. So anyway, the thing that comes next is investigation. And that has been, that's been really beneficial, because I've discovered that there are frequently situations where I'm, trying to, there's some sports metaphor that I was trying to drum up, but I can't come up with it. But there are times that I'm trying to do something for which I'm not fully prepared. And that can lead to imposter syndrome. And that manifests in my body as those muscles tightening up. There's this, it almost feels like the muscles are frozen. And so there's now a new level of understanding that when those muscles tighten up, I can go a little quicker to, what is it that I'm feeling, some sort of imposter syndrome, or that I'm feeling like I need to prove myself, that I'm like in the public eye and I need to prove myself. And so that's been that part of it. Recognize, affirm, accept that I'm feeling that discomfort, and then investigate it. And now I'm at a point where I can begin to nurture myself around that. Like, oh, I'm having a little of that coldness right now because I'm on camera and I'm on television, and I don't know who's watching or who isn't, and I don't know if anyone's watching. So all of that is, plays into that stress and gives me a chance to loosen up and begin to accept those tendencies in myself, and then to, perhaps push onward into when I see someone else exhibiting some of the behaviors I do, when I'm in this state, I've gotten better at not doing this. At least I hope I have. But when I was young, I could become kind of a know-it-all, because it was like I'm pushing away. Like, I don't want to hear anyone else's opinion, because that would mean, like maybe finding out that I don't know everything about something, or that I'm really like punching above my weight. I think that's the sports metaphor I kept looking for, or punching above my class. Anyway, I'm not a boxer. It's just that feeling of the imposter syndrome. And then I've begun in a couple of situations where I've dealt with some negative, even somewhat hostile people. I've been able to kind of see that that's where they're coming from. Then I've been able to defuse the situation by first of all not taking it from them. I think I often freeze up and kind of just I don't stand up for myself sometimes because of some fear or whatever, or maybe because I fear that I'm maybe not right and that I am being an imposter, whatever it is. But in those situations, I've been finding things go a little bit easier. I'm not solving, great conflicts. I'm not, stopping wars from happening. I'm talking about interpersonal conflict with, as it turns out, a couple of difficult people who have been a recurrent theme in my life recently. So yeah, that's been the book again. Radical Compassion. Can't recommend it enough. It's a good read, and the website associated with it, just look up Radical Compassion and you'll find the website. And then a woman, Tara Brach, and her YouTube thing. Great meditations, worth streaming and listening to and doing, if that's your idea of a good time, right? But anyway, so that has been very beneficial to me and has begun to open new doors in terms of my way of looking at compassion, looking at it as a topic, but then also looking at my own how to be compassionate in the world, that there must be a fundamental capacity for compassion toward myself before I try to bring that to others. And that is a challenge for me, I guess. Another thing that is some reading I've been doing. Not proselytizing, but there's a wide part of our culture right now that there's an intersection between Buddhism and particularly Tibetan Buddhism, because of the Dalai Lama and his frequent public speaking and teaching, and psychology. So there's a lot of overlap there. And I have been reading a book of his called The Stages of Meditation, in which, among many other things, he talks about equanimity. How does one achieve compassion? One must begin by understanding equanimity. And what is equanimity? And by the way, this to me is what the Spark of Humanity is about. This is just right up our alley. Equanimity it begins with looking at others and saying, we are all looking for happiness. We are all looking for happiness while we're here. And I'm gonna, because I'm looking at the clock while I'm talking, I want to get to something else for my weekly homework, but in the process of doing that, I may speed this up a little bit and I may come back to it in future sessions. But if we begin by saying, you want to be happy and I want to be happy, even if the other person can't get there, if they can't, experience equanimity, a sense of looking at you as their equal, even if, regardless of their response, I'm not advocating preaching, by the way. I'm not saying, you should say we're equal, we both want happiness here. I don't feel that would work. It might in some circumstances, but examining the way that I am looking for happiness in a situation and the way that someone else, instead of getting caught in the paradigm of we fundamentally disagree, you are wrong and I am right, you are bad and I am good. Those are really, another topic for another day. Because I'll drop this in that I was telling somebody recently, nobody, because they were talking about Star Wars or something like that, where there's an obvious bad guy who then declares themselves to be the bad guy. And I said, nobody has ever come along and said, I am the ultimate evil. I'm sure somebody's done it, but I mean, the ultimate evil in our world has been done. The largest evils have been done by people who are convinced that they are the ultimate good and that they are on the ultimately good side. Push that aside for now. So equanimity. I'm thinking about that. How do I look at others and see them as my equals? There is a thick layer of judgment. We have talked about that before. That I will judge someone else. That person is greedy. That person wants power. They want money. They want to control me, or they want to control their world. And frequently that's true. But to seek equanimity, one must remind oneself that that we both want happiness. Me and that other person are both seeking happiness. Now, what is the means by which we are seeking happiness? Much larger topic. All of these are much larger topics. Luckily for me, I have 2 weeks from now another time to talk about it. But I do want to just briefly talk about refuge, because it's a frequent term in Buddhism, where they talk about taking refuge in your teachers and in the teachings and so on, and in the spiritual community and in the Buddha. It has caused me, knowing that, has caused me to examine a very interesting topic. Like in the process of seeking happiness, what am I taking refuge in? Am I taking refuge in financial well-being, or what we would call financial security? Am I taking refuge in watching television? Am I taking refuge in physical affection with a partner, or my cat who jumps up on my lap way too often? Beginning to ask myself, what do I take refuge in? And how is it that I am just judging others for what they take refuge in? That person, all they want is money. But, I want financial security. Are we at least kind of on parallel tracks, similar tracks? Or they're not identical, but how are they similar? How might I come to understand that other individual? How might I understand others with a sense that they and I are equal? Equanimity and refuge. We're going to call this episode Equanimity and Refuge when we post it on YouTube. And I will delve into these topics more in the future. But again, refuge is like, what is it that I turn to when I need peace? Comfort food, boy, I do a lot of that. Mashed potatoes, right? like something that just brings me comfort. I do a lot of that. I take a nap. I call a friend. I call my brother. I have ways of taking refuge. Many of them I use temporarily. Others I use more frequently. And asking myself without judgment, recognize, accept, investigate, eventually nurture. I'm going to be asking myself over the next couple of weeks, what is it I'm taking refuge in? And looking forward to talking about that more, because it's a question I just began asking myself this morning as I thought about today's broadcast. So if that's useful to you, please take a little time and think about it. If there are other topics you'd like me to explore, please email, call us, contact Orca Media, whatever, and let us know, because there's time here and there's space. I'm running out of time and space right now, But again, I thank Orca Media for making this possible. Have a lovely rest of your day. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye.